The really good thing about retainer contracts, obviously, is that, if you sign a contract with the client, they're going to commit to pay you for that contract period of time. So if it's a 6-month contract, in theory, they're going to pay you for 6 months. So it means guaranteed income. You can sleep at night, and once you sign the contract, it's really pedal to the metal to try and get the client results. So a really good example of a retainer contract, especially if you're in the SMMA game, is if you're running Facebook ads. And this has been a really big industry for a lot of entrepreneurs. They go and speak to that local electrician, that plumber, that solar company, and then they agree to run their Facebook ads for a fixed amount per month. So they might agree to spend $5,000 a month on ads, and usually you want to charge somewhere between 10 and 20% of that amount per month in order to deliver that service. So between $500 and $1,000 per month. Very common. You've heard of it before. Easy to understand. However, they are much harder to sell, right? Because if you position your offer as, listen, you're going to spend $10,000 a month on ads, you're going to have to pay us $1,000 a month to deliver that, and we need to do this for 6 months. Suddenly the client is thinking in their head, well, $10,000 times 6 is $60,000 plus your fees, another $6,000. Suddenly they're thinking, well, I tell you what, we're going to have to get a lot of result for $66,000. And we don't even know you. We can't trust you. How are we going to sign this contract? Usually it's much, much harder to sell. And this is where, if you are someone who's a good salesperson and knows how to push all the buttons and understands how to sell, then you can make these sales. But if someone is relatively new trying to sell this service, if they stumble on their words and they're not confident they can deliver on the service as well, then usually a lot of the times the client will not sign with you, and it's another loss on the chalkboard. You also have issues, right? Like, let's say you sell the contract for 6 months, and then you're 1 month in, you do all of this work, and then suddenly in month 2, you send the invoice and the client is like a week late, and then they're 2 weeks late, and then they're 3 weeks late, and then suddenly you've lost the contract. So you'll be doing all of this work up front, you don't deliver for the client, they stop paying, and then you're back where you started. The other thing which is really, really important to me as someone who delivers services for clients is that with retainer contracts, you become almost like another employee. I mean, think about the word retainer. It literally means retain. You're in handcuffs with these people, right? They're pretty much your boss. So whatever they say, you do, right? So it becomes, I guess, you become like an expense to that business rather than a partner to that business. And, that works in some ways, and people have made a lot of money with retainers contracts. And, I'm not going to knock them. They've been around forever. But it does position you more as like an employee within their business. And if you're anything like me, you started an agency, that's the last thing you want to be, another employee. You want freedom, right? Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about performance-based deals. So, if you're watching this video and performance-based really scares you, then don't worry about it, okay? In this day and age now with AI and what AI is capable of doing, it means a lot of the grunt work and a lot of the stuff that you used to have to pay people to do to deliver on performance doesn't have to be done anymore. You can get AI to do all of the work, which leads me to, what we do for clients now. And this has been tweaked back and forth over the years, but our offer to clients right now is what I call the offer of the century. And I call it the offer of the century is because no client really says no to it all. It's an incredible offer. And if you have clients, then I just ask you or beg you to put this offer in front of them because they're going to say yes. Okay. And here's what the offer is. Do you have any old leads that we can turn into sales using AI and SMS? And we do this on a performance basis, which means that if you don't get paid, we don't get paid. And the reason I call this the offer of the century is because clients just don't say no to it. It removes all of the risk. Okay. It's very easy for them to look back inside their CRM system and see that they've got 10,000 old leads that they've already paid for that are sitting there that they haven't got time to dial, that they haven't got time to turn into sales. Okay, so when we put this offer in front of them, they can physically look inside their CRM, see all of those old leads and almost picture how much money is waiting there to be made from their waste, right? So it's a really clean offer that clients understand and get very, very quickly, okay? And it removes all of the risk, and that's why it works so well. And of course, like, you're not even asking for any money up front. And because, between me and you, there's so much money to be made on the back end, you're happy to do that because the cost to deliver this service is so low for us, okay? AI does all of the work and the cost of a few SMSs, okay? It's a very attractive offer for the client, and it's also a very attractive offer for us as entrepreneurs and agencies to be able to sell to the client. And the other great thing, as opposed to the retainer contract, is it puts us in equal standing with the client, okay? We no longer become that marketing expense. We become a partner, all right? And when we start making sales for the client and we're delivering really great results on a performance basis, it's like we get in bed with them, okay? We're a partner rather than a marketing expense. And that's when things change. That's when you start getting taken on golf trips and out for steak dinners and all of that cool stuff, all right? Because you start building really meaningful relationships rather than just being a retainer marketing expense. And because this is such a strong offer, we're able to very easily take a large percentage of the profit on the back end, all right? And we usually we start with 50%. So let's say a client is making $5,000 profit on a solar install or whatever that might be. We're able to take half of that as our fee, okay? Because it's found money for the client. So some of you might be thinking, yeah, this sounds great, right? But can you really take half of the profits? And the answer is yes. And the objection handle is this. When the client comes back and says, you know what, like, we've worked so hard for all of those leads, we're not going to pay you half of the profit. What are you, mad? Right? Our objection handle is this. Would you rather take 100% of nothing, i.e. if you don't do anything with your database, or half of $100,000, okay, which is the profit we can make from your old leads? And suddenly they're like, okay, the penny drops. It's all over, and then you can get ready and get going. Okay, so let's talk now a little bit about if you are to use the offer of the century and you are to reach out to your clients, and if you haven't done that, please, rewind the video, pause it, and have a look at the offer of the century. Use it word for word, and I guarantee you're going to get a lot of yeses and people that want to work with you, okay? Which brings me on to my next thing, right? Because if you're an experienced marketer, an experienced agency owner, there's going to be costs to deliver a performance-based offer, the offer of the century, okay? And you're absolutely right. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes here. In order to deliver the offer of the century, you're going to have to pay for the SMS. You're going to have to pay for the OpenAI costs. And if you are building your own AI bot, which we can show you how to do, by the way, then the Zapier is included as well as a cost that you're going to have. All right. So it's important to, if you are running this offer, know what these costs are. Okay. And if you haven't done so already, check out what I call the Prince Charming Challenge. We detail how to set all of this up and how you can actually run this for yourself. Okay. But, back onto the subject, how are you going to figure out how much you charge? And are you going to take that risk yourself, or are you going to pass it on to the client? All right, so there's a few different ways of doing this, and it depends how quickly you want to get started and how many clients you want to get and how deep your pockets are, I guess. So the easiest way to get a lot of yeses and clients started is to take all of the risk. So that means you cover the SMS costs, you cover the OpenAI costs, and you cover the Zapier costs, which in the grand scheme of things, if you're doing this for 100,000 of your clients' old leads, which by the way is not unusual, then yeah, the costs are going to be they're going to be fairly significant, those costs, okay? But they're going to be very minimal compared to how much money you can make from those 100,000 old leads, all right? So if you want to get a lot of yeses and just get going, then just absorb all of those costs, okay? Because the payout at the end is going to be so big, all right? But a lot of you aren't willing to do that. And I guess if you are less desperate, and you can be more picky and choosy with who you want to work with, then the next level is that you want to get your clients to pay for the SMS costs and the OpenAI costs and any other costs that you might have. So you might want to do that in some sort of a monthly invoice at the end of each month where you can prove the costs, send it over to the client and they can pay it. Or you can just charge like a a smaller monthly retainer on top of the performance basis deal that you agreed with the client. And they're more than happy to do that when they see the power of this offer. Okay, so the middle ground is that you get them to pay for the costs, all right, the costs only. And I guess the next level, once you start getting more confident, is that you can charge like a chunky setup fee or a drawdown fee. And what I mean by that, if it's a setup fee, clients, like I was just having a conversation in my community about that today, actually. Clients are used to paying setup fees, all right? For a system that is as powerful as this, you can, like I've seen people charge $20,000, $30,000 just to get this set up, all right, before they even start on the performance basis, okay? So clients are more than happy to pay that, but of course, you're going to get more no's, right, for obvious reasons. Another way to really position this in a way to not get many no's is say, we're going to charge you $10,000 up front, okay, but they are the payment in advance for the sales that we bring you, okay? So let's say every time we make a sale or a solar install, we draw down $1,000 each time, okay? And then when we do that 10 times and reach our 10K threshold, then we'll charge you another 10K, all right? So it's like a drawdown deal, still performance-based, works really well, and you should give that a go if you're struggling on, just charging a shit ton up front for a setup fee. Okay, does that make sense? Your brain's probably ticking over, and if you're an experienced agency owner and you've transacted with clients before, you're going to start thinking, yeah, Dan, this all sounds good, but like I'm doing this for a mortgage company, and a mortgage company takes 3 months for their commission to come in. I'm not going to wait 3 months to get paid. And the client's going to be like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that, right? Because you're going to take all the risk for 3 months, then I'm only going to pay you after you get results after 3 months. They're going to be like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this. But it's not always the best way to transact with a client. And the way I explain this is by setting up anchor points in your pricing plan with the client, all right? And by anchor points, I mean, imagine if you're working with that mortgage company, right? There's different stages of the process, from the lead to the appointment set, to the person showing up for the appointment, to the pack sent out for, signing documentation, for going to the lender and getting a decision in principle. I might have got that wrong, you know what I mean? But there's lots of different stages in the sales process before the lead, from when the lead comes in to the client getting paid their commission. Okay, and what you can do is agree with the client an anchor point to get paid on. So it might be simply an appointment set, or it might be an appointment showed. Okay, because if you're talking to a client and they know their numbers, and if it's a good client, they will know their numbers, then they can easily say, listen, if appointment shows up, then we know we convert roughly half of those to a sale, and we know our average sale value, which means we know an average commission that we make from that appointment. Okay, so they will be very easily able to tell you how much they're willing to pay per appointment. And the good news for you is that these leads are super hot, right? Because they've already inquired once to this mortgage company, if you're doing it through a database reactivation deal. And then they're coming back in and they're warm. They've had a conversation with AI leading up to this point. Then they've set an appointment. The quality is off the charts, all right? So they're going to be more than happy to pay per appointment, and they're going to know how much they want to pay. And that's what I mean by anchor points. And the whole reason that I like to charge and teach my students how to charge on anchor points is because you want to get paid fast. All right, that is really important. I mean, some people are okay because you can charge more if you wait that 3 months, and some people are cool doing that if they've got deeper pockets and they trust their clients, right? But if I was you, and when you're starting out, you want to get paid on anchor points and you want to get paid fast. It's still performance basis, right? So clients are going to love it. It just means that you don't have to absorb all the costs for too long. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to swing back to retainer deals, okay? And some of you love retainers. Okay, and you've been doing retainers forever. And actually, some industries only work on retainers too. And we've had this with one of our students, or lots of our students actually, but one that particularly sticks out is a guy called Aaron Rowley. And he came into my community and started working with solar companies, and then mortgage companies, and he kissed a lot of frogs, but he ended up with car dealerships, right? And then when he had his first sales call with the car dealership, he said to them, listen, I charge per lead or per appointment. And the car dealerships are like, mate, what are you talking about? We don't do anything per appointment. The only way we transact with agencies and marketing agencies is on a monthly retainer. He's like, okay, well, let's just do that then, okay? And he's managed to move these car dealerships. I think he has over 40 of them now, from, $5,000 per month, and he upsold them to $7,500. And I think some of them he's now charging over $11,000 per month. All right. And that's because he's helping with their old leads, and then he's helping with their fresh leads as they come in through the ads, through his Facebook ads or Google ads. And he's also looking after their reputation management using AI now, which is all very possible when you get your claws in, but that's a whole nother video that I'm going to talk to you about another day. Okay. But my advice or suggestion is that if you're transacting with clients, then you've got to listen to the way that they like to pay. For example, if he tried to charge a solar client a monthly retainer, they'd be like, hell no, we're just used to paying per lead or per appointment, dude. All right. So it does depend on the industry, the niche, and who you're kind of working with and the way they're used to charging. And for Aaron, that's been an absolute godsend, right? Because he knows he has a fixed amount coming in. He's delivering a lot of results. The clients are happy. And his agency's gone from 0 to well over 6 figures per month recurring in a very short space of time as a result of this. By now, you should understand the difference between the retainer contract and a performance-based deal in the AI world, okay, and how you can potentially take this forward and start offering this to your clients or past, present, or future clients. But one thing that I want to drum home and make crystal clear before you start doing this is always, 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 after you've agreed with the client, run a test, hold them back. So let's say Aaron was working with his car dealership. He's shown them how AI is going to change their business, which it will, and they know this, by the way, and they're keen to get started. The big mistake a lot of people make is they're like, oh, okay, let's do this. Let's do 6 months and let's take all of your leads and then we're going to go into speed to lead, and then we're going to help with your reputation management, and let's install voice AI at the same time, right? And, the client may be on board with that, but the reality is that you're moving too quickly, okay? And if you're over-promising and you're trying to shout at your client and you're trying to get them to do all of these things and do them quickly, if you're anything like me, that's what you'll do, then they become overwhelmed. And when you overpromise, then you look like a fool afterwards, right? If you can't deliver, okay? Or the results are anything less than you promise. And that causes damage that can't be repaired, okay? So what we always do and what I recommend is to always start with a test, okay? So you've had that conversation with the car dealership. They're ready to go. All you want to say is this: listen, we're just as excited as you are, all right? But the thing is that we've worked with clients in the past, and if they've got an IT team that doesn't give us the API details to be able to set this up quickly, or we work with a client who takes 4 weeks to sign the contract before we get going, or we work with a client whose sales team won't call the leads or their appointments when they come in, and they take 3 days to dial a lead. Okay, suddenly we're doing all this work on a performance basis, Mr. Client, and you're not delivering on your end. Okay, I wouldn't say that. I'd use that as an example, but I would say that this is sometimes what happens when we've worked with clients in the past. And that's why we always run a test, okay, because we want to make sure, Mr. Client, that you're not one of these people that takes forever to get back, that doesn't sign the contract quickly, that doesn't have a sales team that calls the leads. I'm sure that's not you, Mr. Client, but we want to make sure that you're not that person. And that's why we run a test. We'll do this for 30 days. And if you like us and we like you, then we can continue on. And guess what this does? This is my secret weapon, okay? It positions you as the chooser and not the chosen. It gets them to get back to you quickly. It gets them to sign the contract. It gets them to pass their tech geeks over so you can get all the tech stuff set up. And they'll do it very quickly. So you have to position this as a test and make it like you want to work. They've got to be good enough to work with you. And when it's positioned that way, things get very interesting very quickly, okay? And the clients will, wow, this is a breath of fresh air. All right, so please give that a go, okay? Try a performance base, even try a retainer for this type of offer if you can, but always start with a test because it makes a really big difference. I hope that makes sense. As I mentioned previously, we have the Prince Charming Challenge, which shows you how to do this. It's on my YouTube channel. For those of you who are more of a reader, I've got a book. It's called The Instant AI Agency. You'll find a link to it below. This book is really easy to read. It's good stuff. It'll give you everything you need in order to set yourself up, make the offer to clients, get them on what I call coffee dates, and then close them in the way that I've described in this video today. You're going to love it. As I said, it's good stuff. I'll speak to you soon.